95, Double Date. Ryan drove his Plymouth Fury through dilapidated streets, while his partner in crime explained the plan in the back. He had put on the bowler hat, like a crown of pain and destruction. When Psyshock dies, the bunker will go in high alert, Livia explained, checking on her phone. Cancel waited on the other side of the line to execute the metal squid. According to Ryan, Adam the Ogre explicitly ordered the land to close the bunker's entrance if intruders get too close to it. This means we have only a short time window to either take down the land, or reach the base's entrance before she can close it. How long? Shroud asked, trying to disguise his voice by making it rougher. Minutes, Livia replied. How do we prevent her from noticing our approach? The vigilante was always such a downer. Her range extends for miles. I checked. The good thing about Ghoul is that, like with Lego toys, Ryan said while opening the glove box, he comes in many parts. A skeletal foot wriggled within it. Oh, I wondered where the rest of him had gone, Shroud noted from the back seat. What is this, Sifu? The panda asked, disturbed. It's like a rabbit foot, it brings luck. Ryan glanced at Fortuna in the rearview mirror. Though less than the living charm over here. Thank you for recognizing my superiority, though it is obvious, Fortuna said with smug pride. And this is disgusting. Ryan froze time and tossed the severed foot at her lap, causing Lucky Girl to scream when the clock resumed. She made a cute sound and grabbed Shroud on instinct, much to the vigilante's confusion. He seemed torn between reassuring her and annoyance. I have a hand in the trunk, if you prefer it, the courier mocked the blonde. I will show you a hand. Fortuna complained before throwing the foot at the driver. She would have aimed true too, if Ryan didn't freeze time to catch the projectile. I will slap you in the face. Anyway, as long as we have her tenant's body parts in the car, the landowner won't pay attention to us. Ryan put the foot back in the glove box. She will think PSY picked Ghoul up and they're now returning home. At least, until we crash through their front door. Livia answered with a nod. The reptilian, Acid Rain, Gemini, and the thralls should protect the junkyard's surface, while the rest of the gang is in standby inside their base. Psyshock's execution will free his victims, the reptilian shouldn't be a problem, and I can handle Acid Rain. Ryan blinked. You can? Though he couldn't see her face with her helmet on, the courier was pretty sure Livia grinned in response. I can see where she teleports before she does. In the end, the life of a genome was a giant game of rock paper scissors. One power trumped another, forming a delicate, complex web. And then you had people like Lightning Butt, who just plain cheated at life. Gemini and the land don't have any hard counters though, Livia said, as the group came within sight of the junkyard's walls of car piles and trash. Fortuna, Shroud, can you take care of them? Leave it to us, Livy, Fortuna replied before frowning. Now that I think of it, I should get a pseudonym too. I would have taken Diana if Felix hadn't run off, but... You should choose a name that fits yourself, not others' desires, Shroud said. You're right, but I should get something that my boyfriend will like, since we'll spend our lives together, Fortuna said while checking her phone. I'll harass him with suggestions until he likes one. Ryan could tell that the boyfriend in question was strongly resisting the urge to facepalm, doubly so as the panda started offering suggestions of his own. How about Lady Luck, the man-bear proposed. The legend? I would have said almost invincible, but the last half is already taken, the courier joked at the front. Excuse you? Almost invincible? Fortuna sneered arrogantly. Nobody can hurt me. I'm the world's luckiest woman. The memory of the blonde model bleeding out after Pluto shot her in the chest flashed through Ryan's mind. Only if another yellow isn't involved, Goldie, Ryan said. The land is won, and you should stay as far away from her as possible, lest you find your luck running out. That can't happen. It can, Livia said, shocking her best friend. The land is a yellow/orange psycho who can gain conceptual dominion over an area, and this control trumps yours over luck. Ryan's brief presidential term had given him insight into the metagang's operations and abilities. In particular, he had learned that the land could also telekinetically manipulate Earth, but her precision was inversely proportional to her range. While she was near impossible to destroy while fused to the Earth's soil, she could only create quakes in that state. However, this power combination also made the land Fortuna's natural counter. Your power is a guardian angel, Ryan told Lucky Girl. But like all yellow powers, it follows esoteric rules. Which means it's nonsensical, but with its own internal logic. I don't get it, Fortuna said with a frown. Her boyfriend caught on though. Your power alters probability and events to protect you, under the guise of luck, Shroud explained. But the land has supreme spiritual control over an area. By that logic, its authority is higher than your powers in her territory. So she can harm me? Fortuna asked shyly, her pride replaced with doubt. She felt suddenly a lot less confident about this mission, but Livia reassured her by holding her hand. You will live if you're, Livia trailed off, glancing at Shroud. Your partner protects you during the battle. The land will need to take back physical form to use her full telekinesis, which will give you an opening to take her down. A deal is a deal, Shroud said, though the main reason he ended up with Fortuna was due to her power foiling his assassination attempts. Unlike your kind, we do not betray our alliance in the middle of a fight. If you have my back, I will have yours. You better. Fortuna said, regaining her bravery. If I die, I swear I will haunt you. Ryan suddenly wondered how the land and Geist's abilities would interact, and folded the idea away into a corner of his mind. Maybe the former could exorcise the latter, especially since his power anchored him to an area too. In any case, if they could take out the land, then the metagang didn't have anyone capable of bringing down Lucky Girl. With that walking four-leaf clover on their side, the battle would be as good as won. Gemini and Ink Machine would be the hardest to contain due to their abnormal physiology, followed by Frank. Ryan could take care of his former bodyguard, but he could only hope Fortuna and her long-suffering boyfriend could deal with the former too. He had also informed the panda of his power's regeneration, so he could pull his weight in the battle to come. Which would start within seconds, as the Plymouth Fury finally reached the junkyard's entrance fence. The Reptilian and Gemini stood watch over the entrance, with Lizard Boy's reptilian eyes squinting as the car approached. Ryan hoped for one of them to shout, "You shall not pass," and was deeply disappointed when they didn't. Lucky Girl. The courier kept one hand on the driver's wheel, and tossed Len's water rifle at Fortuna with the other. Aim for the eyes. Go get them. Livia encouraged her best friend, while Fortuna opened the windows with a grin. Stop right there. The reptilian panicked, but Ryan answered by accelerating. Stop. Fortuna fired at the psychos with the water rifle as the car passed, not even bothering to aim. Her projectiles hit true nonetheless, trapping the reptilian in a sphere of water. The water phased through Gemini however, the ethereal woman of light vanishing as the car approached. Her monstrous shadow chased after the Plymouth Fury, but not quickly enough to make a difference. Ryan raced through the junkyard's labyrinth of forking trash walls and twisted turns. He still carried the reflexes from his first suicide run, and experienced an impression of déjà vu. Someone should sound the alarm in 5, 4. Now. Livia said, typing on her phone. No bell raised the alarm. Cancel must have executed Psyshock on the spot, freeing the thralls and sowing confusion into the ranks. Ryan didn't understand how much until they reached the bunker's entrance without the land stopping them. Acid rain guarded the tunnel leading beneath the junkyard, and instantly summoned her toxic clouds above their hands. "Thieves!" she shouted at the Plymouth Fury's sight, her face twisted into an expression of frothing fury as she drew 2 knives. "Thieves at the gates!" Fortuna opened fire at her with the water rifle, but the land seemed to have finally noticed the intrusion. The junkyard trembled as an earthquake shook its foundations, tossing trash and collapsing car walls. A golden shroud became visible around Fortuna, like an angel's halo. A similar glow surrounded her bubble projectile, but flickered in and out of sight. Acid rain managed to dodge the attack. Just as the land's invisible pressure overwhelmed Ryan's crew, it felt like being out in the woods, stalked by a wolf pack. The courier abruptly stopped the car near the bunker's entrance. "Go, go, go," he shouted, all but leaping out of the vehicle. "Why yes." The panda opened his door and transformed as soon as he could, while Livia stepped out more calmly. Shroud attempted to open his car's door to fly into the fray, but the lock refused to move. He grumbled at Fortuna, as he carried her in his hands like a bride through the opposing door. Good thing he did too, as acid rain's toxic raindrops fell from the skies while the land caused a nearby trash wall to collapse near the Plymouth Fury. Ryan, Livia, and the panda quickly moved out of the way, while the flying shroud carried his beloved above the ground Superman style. Acid rain's raindrops miraculously dropped where he wasn't. The Plymouth Fury wasn't so lucky though. "My car!" Ryan screamed in horror, as piles of trash entombed his beautiful companion. "You killed my car." Again. Did the Meta Gang have a vendetta against Chrysler? "Fortuna, give me the rifle." Livia shouted at Fortuna, who tossed the water weapon at her best friend. No sooner did the Augusti princess catch it that acid rain teleported behind her, knives raised. The panda attempted to pounce on her, but wouldn't reach her in time. So Ryan stopped it. "Sorry Helen," the courier said, as he put on the Fisty Brothers and quickly activated his time stop. Acid rain's eyes widened upon hearing her real name, but she teleported out of range before the clock could freeze. The courier quickly grabbed the paralyzed Livia and moved her out of the way, in case the teleporter flanked her again. Acid rain reappeared the second time resumed, her weapons lunging for Ryan's throat. "You piece of shit," she snarled, as a shiver went down the courier's spine. "I'll gut you like a..." Time skipped forward. When Ryan regained consciousness, he found himself a few steps away from his starting location, and acid rain's knife stabbed the transformed panda's arm. Though her blade cut deep, it didn't do much to slow down a 700-kilo behemoth. Acid rain herself barely had the time to blink as Livia pulled the water rifle's trigger, the Augusti princess having positioned herself right behind the teleporter. A sphere of water swallowed Helen, and when she attempted to teleport away atop a hill of junk, the prison followed her. Acid rain covered her mouth in an attempt to hold her breath, as she and the bubble rolled down the trash pile. It had been too late to save Ryan's bowler hat though. Acid raindrops had wormed a hole in it, and slightly damaged Livia's suit. "She tried to stab you," the Augusti princess said while the panda removed the knife in his arm. Livia's secondary power allowed her to skip time forward, creating an anomaly where everyone followed their predestined actions like sleepwalkers while she could adjust her own. Ryan, though, couldn't be interacted with in that state. "The blade phased through you. How did she behave in the erase time?" Ryan asked, glancing at a flying shroud and Fortuna. The land seemed to have singled them out as the real danger, trying to bury them beneath debris to no avail. "She teleported away when I activated my power, but since I can predict her actions with my blue power, I simply had to wait for her to reappear." Livia rushed at the bunker's entrance tunnel, which the land had started collapsing with a quake. "And now we must act. Pandawan, with me." Ryan shouted at his sidekick, while shouting one last observation to Lucky Girl and Looking Glass. Windshield, the land controls the land. I don't think her power affects people in the air. I wasn't gonna let her go anyway, the glass manipulator replied. He looked truly dashing, holding his girlfriend like a bride before the altar. He would soon have to walk the talk too, as Ryan noticed Gemini's shadow slither into the junkyard's center. Fortuna didn't seem to like it one bit though. I know how you feel, she told her masked beau, her arms around his neck. You fell for me at first sight. Don't worry, I get that all the time. That couldn't be farther from the truth, Shroud replied with heavy sarcasm, gathering a cloud of glass shards from the trash walls to throw at Gemini. I get that all the time, his oblivious girlfriend repeated, deaf to both sarcasm and common sense. The sight of me dazzled you, because you are poor and your life is meaningless. But though you have that dark, mysterious charm, it cannot be. I am not the kind of girl that cheats on her boyfriend with the first mysterious stranger. That shouldn't be a problem, Ryan heard Shroud deadpan back, before the courier entered the tunnel with the transformed panda rushing at his heels. Ryan hoped they could manage the land and Gemini, but Livia didn't seem worried. She must have seen them prevail in her visions. In any case, the courier's group quickly arrived in front of the bunker's blast door, while the earth walls around them threatened to collapse. A pack of Dynami's dog drones immediately ambushed them. Spring roll attack. The panda shouted as he outpaced his teammates and pounded on the robots like a rolling boulder, flattening one of the machines. Two others attempted to flank Livia, and rushed at her with iron jaws. Heavier caliber? Ryan asked Livia before tossing her his coil gun. His accomplice grabbed the weapon in her right hand while holding her water rifle with the other. Though she was no talented marksman, she shot one drone with precision, blowing off its head, most probably her power helped with aiming. The other machine was within an inch of closing its iron jaws around Livia's neck, but Ryan froze time and punched it with fisty. The blow sent the metal hound crashing against a wall when time resumed. Individually their abilities were powerful, but together, they were invincible. The sheer synergy had turned this whole raid's difficulty from hard to easy. We should strongly consider taking over the world with our combined powers, Ryan told Livia. None shall stand in our way. Which of us gets America? The mafia princess asked a hard question. I take the South, you take the North? Or we marry and we share everything. He couldn't help himself but flirt with ladies mid-battle. To his surprise, Livia teased him back. Only if you conquer France for our honeymoon. The panda, who had summarily crushed the remaining drones while screaming his attacks' names, looked at the duo in horror. Sifu, you aren't considering turning to the dark side?
Nah.
It's purely hypothetical, Ryan reassured him while the trio crossed the blast door, the tunnel collapsing behind them. The land had closed the bunker's entrance for now, trapping them inside. Unless, Livia left her sentence hanging, looking at Ryan. He immediately caught on. Unless they tried in another loop? Ryan had worried bringing in more people through loops would limit his options, but a time-traveling buddy opened so many possibilities. You know what, how about we take some holiday time after we finish work? It had been a while since he had gone on a vacation loop, but it would be perfect to de-stress after all these doomsday scenarios. I will show you places you can't even imagine. That would be fun, Livia replied with a warm, delightful chuckle. The seer seemed to enjoy this raid as much as the one on Star Studio, and somehow her good mood only reinforced Ryan's. Though we should find a team name. Crimson World? Ryan happily suggested. Two violets do not make a red, Ryan, Livia giggled in return, as they crossed the metal corridor leading towards the recreational area. The invisible pressure of the land's power vanished, either because Looking Glass managed to force her to manifest or because her power's range stopped at the bunker's entrance. How about Lady and Knight? Crimson Queen and Purple World? Are you two together? the panda asked, unable to suppress his curiosity. You look so cute, it makes me fuzzy inside. Not yet, Ryan joked, before glancing at the reinforced windows on both sides of the path. The area had fallen into complete chaos, with Psyshock's thralls having collapsed unconscious after their brainwasher's demise. Most importantly, Shorty had risen from the bunker's sea access in full power armor, and took the psychos by surprise. Ryan noticed a few familiar faces like Pale Guy and Fuckface trapped in water spheres, but his best friend struggled with Rakshasa and Ink Machine. The former summoned gremlins faster than the underwater genius could trap them in water bubbles, while the latter harassed her in close combat, stretching her liquid limbs into axes. No, not yet, Livia said, her tone changing from teasing to serious. She can handle them, Ryan. But only if we take down Adam and Frank quickly enough, or else there will be casualties. The courier nodded. Though this loop was a test run for the final bunker raid, he couldn't let any innocents die if he could help it. Ryan's thoughts turned to what he would do after New Rome. He came to this city expecting to either return to wandering the earth if he couldn't find Shorty, or settle down with her if he did. In the end, while he and Len reconciled, they couldn't return to the happy, blissful romance they once shared. The wheel of time had turned. They would remain close family, but no more than brother and sister. Ryan was happy with it, but he wondered if he would stay with Len and the orphans after solving the crisis in New Rome. Adventure was in his blood, and he yearned for new experiences. At one point, the courier had found a lively partner in Jasmine, who shared his sensibilities, but she was gone. For the first time in a long while, Ryan wondered what he wanted to do with his life, now that he had friends who could remember him. And he had the intuition Livia was the key to figuring it out. But these questions could wait for later. The trio rushed into the recreational area, finding the atrium deserted. Though the Street Fighter's arcade game was mercifully intact, alongside the bar, no group of psychos barred the group's path. Perhaps Shorty had already dealt with the main defenders, or some had perished trying to access the bunker. The moment of respite lasted until the elevator's door opened, and a colossal figure with carbon skin walked into the atrium. I am sorry, Big Fat Adam said as he walked out of the elevator, with Saren and Frank in tow. He carried some strange, coiled cannon in hands, probably salvaged from Mekran's armory. That is not an exit. Indeed, fat-ass, Ryan replied, Livia taking position at his side while the panda let out a fearsome roar. This time, Hannafat Lecter had nowhere to run. 96, Beast of the East. Ryan went straight for the killing blow. CIA. His hand moved inside his trench coat, and brought out a fake badge he had prepared for this day. Arrest this man. The Senate impeached High. Adam didn't let him finish, and instead pressed his cannon's trigger. A black sphere came out of it, forcing Ryan's group to disperse. The courier instinctively dived down towards the Street Fighter's arcade game, desperate to protect it, while Livia and the panda moved to the other side. Though the cannon's black projectile moved slowly, it shredded the bunker's metal walls like paper, absorbing anything in its path like a tiny black hole. Ryan briefly mistook it for a black flux weapon, but on a closer look, the projectile simply pulled things towards itself. A gravity gun. Did it have something to do with Dynami's secret weapon to deal with Augustus? Food for thought. Saren immediately followed her boss lead, unleashing a shockwave at Livia. The seer saw the attack coming before the psycho even pulled the trigger, and stepped out of the way. The panda let out a fearsome roar and charged at Big Fat Adam, claws extended. See? Ryan looked at Frank while waving his badge, who was slightly confused. He doesn't respect the democratic process. But to his surprise, Big Fat Adam happily played along. See, that's what I told you, Frank, Hannafat Lecter said with joviality, before backhanding the panda so hard the man-bear tumbled backward. The storm is here. The CIA is taking over, trying to kill me as they did with Kennedy. They slew my vice president, like they're going to kill all the senators. They won't get to you, Mr. President. Frank swore, his fists raised so high that they hit the ceiling. The White House will not fall. You have to protect democracy, Frank. Big Fat Adam continued to brainwash his bodyguard with a sinister, televangelist smile. If you fail, all is lost. Frank let out a roar of rage, grabbed the recreational area's bar counter, and threw it at the panda. The poor man-bear couldn't dodge, the heavy projectile exploding on contact. Though it didn't kill the 700 kilos bear, it stopped him dead on his tracks, and allowed Frank the Mad to bull rush him. The whole atrium shook with every step of the Iron Giant. The fat ass had anticipated someone might use Frank's delusion against him, and prepped him up accordingly. That damn, cunning bloody bastard. You know, of all the foes I've fought in my long life, you're probably one of the most dangerous, Ryan confessed to Adam. Augustus was far more powerful, but Hannafat Lecter more than compensated in cunning and sheer depravity. And that's really saying something. What can I say, mate? If a man is a man, he knows what he wants and gets it. And what I want, he raised his gravity cannon at Ryan, is to make you squirm. Ryan stopped time, the projectile stopping in midair. Good, a black flux weapon would have still worked. Speaking of black flux, Ryan rushed at the false president to introduce him to his minorities' rights. Tossing his false CIA badge aside, the courier punched the cannibal in his stomach. Having managed to rattle Augustus in the previous loop, Ryan expected to inflict some damage. Big Fat Adam's carbon skin was way less resistant than Lightning Butt's body, as the latter tore through the former like butter. The ogre didn't even flinch. If anything, the blow seemed to damage Fisty's pistons more than the Metagang's leader. Why? Why didn't it work? Had his encounter with Lightning Butt been a fluke? Had Ryan only managed to hurt Augustus because the plushie softened him up first? Unless Ryan needed to focus his powers first? The courier could only produce visible black flux particles while wearing the power armor, after all. I need the Saturn armor to use that power? Ryan muttered to himself, right before time resumed. Hannafat Lecter's projectile demolished the Street Fighter's game, much to the courier's dismay. The arcade. This was it. If his Plymouth Fury getting drowned in garbage hadn't ruined this run, that tragedy did. You tell me, mate, Big Fat Adam replied, wielding his cannon with one hand and trying to smash Ryan with his other fist. He didn't have time to do much, as a coil gun shot him in the left eye, blowing it up in a brief shower of blood. Arg! Ryan took the opportunity to leap back to safety, glancing at his savior. Thanks, I guess the two of you didn't see eye to eye. Oh, right, I'm supposed to quip, Livia said, wielding the coil gun and aiming to finish Big Fat Adam's bullet surgery. Anyone in favor of safety glasses, say aye. Ryan groaned, but forgave her weak pun fu. She fired another projectile at One-Eye Adam, but he protected his face with his hand. The bullet bounced off his carbon skin, though it pushed his palm back slightly. Sarin, he snarled, trying to wipe the blood off his face. Kill that one. Sarin unleashed a shockwave at Livia. Though she failed to hit the Augusti princess, her assault forced Livia to fall back to behind the ruins of the bar counter. The panda wasn't in a better position, the much bigger Frank having tossed him against one of the atrium's walls. Hazmat Girl turned at Ryan to blast him, and the courier decided to use his secret weapon. Bianca. Sarin froze in place. Your boss isn't working to find a cure, but I am, Ryan pleaded, a hand extended. We can make you human again. She unleashed a shockwave, and he dodged by leaping to the side. Are you a blue or some shit? Sarin asked angrily. A telepath reading my brain? You've got air for neurons, how could I read it? Ryan asked, though all it did was infuriate the psycho. You must have seen it too. He's throwing you at this base's orbital command center, not at the Elixir labs. He's distracting you, Adam said after wiping off the blood from his face. His only remaining eye glared with malevolence as he raised his gravity gun at Livia's hiding spot. Don't listen and power through. It's true, Livia said from her hiding spot. Ryan. Realizing her intention, Ryan rushed at Saren, just as a chill went due. Time skipped forward a few seconds, and when it resumed, Ryan had slammed Saren to the ground. Holes had appeared where Livia used to hide, and where Hannafat Lecter's remaining eye should have been. The cannibal screamed in pain, while Livia kept hitting his head with bullets. The panda had managed to free himself from Frank's grasp by returning to human form, and then shifting back into the powerful animal. Look outside, we aren't here to kill anyone, Ryan told Saren, before adding a caveat. Except PSY and your boss, but their asses. The rest of you, we will cure. Shut the hell up. Saren's gauntlets vibrated, and she aimed for the courier's head. A shockwave hit the ceiling, causing concrete and pipes to fall in the middle of the room. Think wisely, Bianca. You've been with him for years, and what does he have to show for it? Nothing. He doesn't want to save anyone, and deep down you know it too. You think you will be able to return to a normal life as long as he's around? What chance is there to turn my life around at all? She snarled, managing to kick him off her. Both rose back to their feet, with Hazmat Girl threatening to blast Ryan again. Why would you care? Because you don't deserve this, he argued, dodging another volley. You don't deserve to be trapped in that suit, unable to touch, to smell, to taste. You made a mistake when you took these elixirs and you've paid for it ever since. You don't know what it feels to be me, jackass. Saren snarled back. I don't know how you can read my memories, but fuck off from them. She pointed her gauntlets at the ground to increase the size of her jumps, soaring above the room until she almost reached the ceiling. She bombarded Ryan from above with repeated short blasts, but the courier dodged each one. I don't want to hurt you, Bianca. Ryan pleaded, showing one of the guns he kept in his trench coat. I could breach your suit with a bullet in my sleep. As if I would, Ryan grabbed a weapon and shot her so fast that she couldn't even finish her sentence. The bullet grazed her mask, right near the point where it combined with the rest of the suit. This time, when Saren landed on the ground, she didn't immediately attack. She touched her mask and gazed silently at Ryan. It's over for him, the courier said, glancing at Adam. But not for you. You can still survive this. You don't know me, she said, and you don't know him either. Oh, I do, and that's why he will die. But it's not too late for you. Are you a white knight or some self-help shitstain? Saren let out a hiss of disgust. Why should I even trust you? The courier answered by tossing the Fisty Brothers and his gun to the ground. Saren flinched in response, perhaps expecting a trick, but all Ryan did was to raise his arms and put himself at her mercy. Bianca, he said. I'm your last chance. Your last chance at turning your life around. Don't waste it. I won't, Saren replied, pointing her hands at his head. I won't waste the chance to wipe off that thick skull of yours. You may slay me, but I have at my back a force you cannot hope to defeat, Ryan bluffed. You've been on the losing side long enough. You would rather die as Saren, or live as Bianca? Saren raised her vibrating gauntlets. And hesitated. Her hands looked within an inch of opening fire, and her gas mask was as impenetrable as ever. Yet she didn't attack. Ryan's words had planted the seed of doubt in her mind, and now she didn't know what to think. Meanwhile, Livia ran out of bullets, tossing the coil gun aside. Head trauma, Ryan, she shouted at the courier. Big Fat Adam had dropped his gravity gun, and the Auguste's projectiles had slowly pushed him against the elevator's doors. His power only protects his skin, but not the organs beneath. If we keep hitting his head, he'll get a concussion and bleed internally. You're Augustus girl, Big Fat Adam rasped angrily, trying to detect her by sound. When he did, he lunged at her with nightmarish speed, mouth opened and hands raised. The blood flowing from his eyes made him look like a ghoul rising from the dead to devour the living. I'll send you back to your old man in pieces. Leaving Saren to mull over her doubts, Ryan activated his power, caught Livia in the frozen time, and pulled her out of the way. Big Fat Adam's sharp teeth closed on nothing but air, and Lightning Butt's daughter instinctively grabbed the courier by the arm. You should stop doing that, princess, Ryan teased her, her fingers holding him by the sleeve. People will talk. Let them, Livia replied playfully. You may rescue me as many times as you like. Mr. President. Frank tossed the wounded panda aside and moved towards Livia and Ryan. I'm coming. Instead of running away, Livia faced the Titan and said 2 words. Stop, Vladimir. For a moment, Ryan thought he had misheard, and so did Frank. The giant flinched, as if he had been stabbed in the heart. Your true name is Vladimir Khabarov, Livia continued. Not Frank. As PSY had said in a previous loop, Frank the Mad. Frank the Mad was no American. He was Russian. This is communist propaganda. Frank snarled, covering his head with his hand as if he could block Livia's voice. I was born in Arkansas, like country music. Your family farm wasn't in Arkansas. Since Livia couldn't hit the giant physically, she targeted his fragile mind. It was in Novgorod. Your father wasn't a cowboy, but a Soviet, and he perished choking on stolen caviar. Lies. Frank snarled while raising his fist. He attempted to squash Ryan and Livia like bugs, but the courier froze time to move out of the way. The giant's fist hit the floor, going through it like steel through paper. Saren chose this moment to pick a side. She blasted the ground below Frank, part of the floor collapsing below the giant's weight. The self-hating colossus fell down the hole halfway, with only his torso sticking up. He attempted to raise himself up, to no avail. Sifu, get down. Ryan turned around, to see that Big Fat Adam had recovered and tried to flank him. The blinded madman must have detected them by listening to their exchange with Frank. Suffering from his cooldown, Ryan attempted to back away, but Livia held him by the sleeve. Instead, his bloodied Pandawan tackled the ogre before he could get anywhere near his master. The two brawled for a second, but the more experienced Adam quickly grabbed the bear's hands with his own. The psycho opened his mouth, to reveal a syringe full of swirling liquid. An elixir, but not a Mecrin-made one. This was the same blue elixir the cannibal had attempted to turn Ryan into a psycho with after blowing New Rome to Kingdom Come. And true to his sick obsessions, Adam spatted at his foe. The courier barely had the time to blink in horror as the elixir shattered on the panda's face. Blue liquid splattered on the panda's soft fur, and though true elixirs couldn't bond to animals, that one must have detected the human beneath. The green genome switching back and forth between his two forms as his body absorbed the liquid. Big Fat Adam pushed his victim backward to fall on his back with cruel glee, while Ryan held his breath in horror. I got one of you, Hannafat Lecter gloated triumphantly. Indeed you did, Livia replied with smug calmness. Her tone surprised Ryan. Why didn't Livia seem concerned? Why didn't she fall back? Unless she had seen this event in a vision, and let it happen? Why? Only when the panda settled back in his animal form, did Ryan understand. His body had completely absorbed the blue elixir, the syringe's shards crushed beneath his mighty feet. Instead of madness, the monster of the East moved with focus, and purpose, and strength. Out of all the millions of people living in New Rome. "No way," Saren whispered with shock and jealousy, as the man-bear took a step towards Adam. The cannibal heard him coming, but he had guessed what happened from the sound. The realization had left him too shocked to move. Livia had predicted she and her father could take 2 elixirs with no ill effect. And when the panda's eyes shone with a blue hue, Ryan felt a moment of religious awe. A Gregorian song echoed at the back of his mind, and he could almost see holy light shining into the bunker. For God existed, and he had fur. The panda launched himself in the air, his right leg and arms extended, the left knee folded. How could a giant bear fly like this? Ryan would never understand, but he did. Perhaps Big Fat Adam might have dodged, if he still had eyes, or maybe he would have been paralyzed in awe too. The panda shouted his attack's name, with his cute, amusing voice. Soaring Panda. How could something so ridiculous look so good? The panda's feet hit Hannafat Lecter's head with so much strength, that Ryan heard a loud crack as both connected. The monstrous psycho flew backward and crashed on the ruins of the arcade, while the victorious bear gracefully landed on his feet. His pose reminded the courier of a Bruce Lee movie, and perhaps it came straight from it. As for Adam the ogre, he did not rise up again. And hopefully, he never would. Frank, who had observed the scene with horror, attempted to free himself to no avail. His body absorbed the metal within the floor, trapping him further like quicksand. "It's over, Frank," Saren said, vibrating hands pointed at his head. "Don't make me blast you." "I must fight the communists' infiltrators," he shouted. And Ryan answered, "No, Frank. You are the communists." And then Frank was a zombie. Or he might as well have been, for Ryan's words were the coup de grace. The giant looked at his chest, scratching at it as if he could exorcise the Marxist-Leninist evil that infected him, but when he couldn't, he slammed his head against the floor and mentally shut down. Perhaps his suppressed memories had resurfaced, flooding his brain just as Livia had expected. His false patriotism shattered, the once proud giant had become an immobile pile of scrap. The courier observed him in a minute of respect, as he watched this proud giant, this loyal bodyguard that perished protecting presidents so many times, reduced to such a pitiful state. "How did you know about Frank's past?" Ryan asked Livia, as Saren lowered her gauntlets, still on her guard. "I looked for a future where I won the fight," the mafia princess replied not so smugly. "Your power is almost as busted as your best friend's. Says the pot calling the kettle black," Livia chuckled. "Speaking of best friends, ours should be done now." "I got one, Sifu," the panda said triumphantly, sitting atop a crushed Big Fat Adam's stomach. "I got one." The circle was complete. When Ryan met him, the panda had been the disciple. Now, he was a master. The battle for the junkyard ended in a complete, near-flawless victory. The only loss on Ryan's side was his car, which had been wounded in action, though the chronoradio and key functions had survived the land's attack, so the time traveler could always repair it. The group had gathered the psychos in the bunker's hangar, with Saren and the panda helping Len move the unconscious meta-gang members into bathyspheres. They would transport the psychos to underwater jails, until Ryan could figure out a cure for their condition. Psyshock's thralls would also be kept there, to receive medical attention and avoid the bunker's secret from spreading yet. They would be released once the base was destroyed. As for Big Fat Adam, Len insisted on bubbling him too. Unlike the other prisoners though, he drowned to death in it, waking up just long enough to understand he was about to die. Communists could never make a good product, especially for people who tried to attack orphans under their care. As for Fortuna and Shroud, they had both walked inside the bunker without a mask and arm in arm. The former looked giddy, the latter, as if he wished to die inside. You won't believe it, Fortuna announced. Matthias. Matthias is the shroud. No way? Ryan replied with a falsely surprised tone. Your boyfriend? My boyfriend. Fortuna squealed, though her companion looked more resigned than anything else. I would never have guessed. I knew he wasn't all that clear, Ryan said. How did it happen? Livia asked, half curious, half displeased. The land took back physical form to fight us at full power, as you suspected, Shroud answered with a sigh. A rock hit my mask while I was holding Fortuna, and it shattered. It must have looked very dramatic. How unlucky of you, Ryan put salt on the wound. All along I wondered why you were always there when I had a problem, but now I understand. Fortuna put a hand on her boyfriend's shoulder. You were watching over me, like a guardian angel. How romantic. That couldn't be farther from the truth, Matthias replied, though he sounded a bit more ashamed than usual. You don't need to be mean, I know you care now, Fortuna said with a foxy grin. A flash of flustered embarrassment passed on her boyfriend's face, which he immediately suppressed with a stoic face. I trapped the land inside a glass prison outside, while Gemini surrendered after she realized all was lost, he said, before glancing at Saren. Why is she still running around? She turned her coat the right way, Ryan replied. She will be very important later. Matthias' eyes squinted at the courier, and the Augusti woman at his side. After we put the Metagang in custody, we will need to talk about this place's future, and yours. Yours most of all. Have you told Sunshine about us? Ryan asked, while Livia bristled. Not yet, Shroudy Matt admitted. I wasn't sure if my hypothesis was correct, but after seeing this place, now I am. And I have enough questions for a lifetime. They will wait after your girlfriends, Ryan mocked him. Yes, indeed, said Lucky Girl. I want to know everything. How long have you been a hero? Are you on a team? Do you have a sidekick? Matthias sighed as Fortuna dragged him away. Though Ryan noticed he didn't struggle as much as he should. They remind me of a tree and moss, the courier told Livia. She's growing on him, and he's starting to like it. He will have to come clean to her though, Livia said icily. Or I will tell the truth for him. Fortuna deserves that much. Probably, but Ryan doubted Lucky Girl's power would work so hard to set them together if it wouldn't make her happy in the end. You look concerned, Ryan, Livia said with a frown. Is something the matter? Yes. The bunker is ours with no strings attached. We caught Adam before he could pull off his plans. Nobody I liked has died so far, and the panda has 2 powers. He emphasized these last words, because he could hardly believe it himself. Everything went well. Livia chuckled. Ryan, that's good news. I'm just expecting for the other shoe to drop, the courier replied. Why would it? She asked. We worked hard, and it paid off. The previous loop ended in disaster, but we learned from it and acted accordingly. We. Such a sweet word to hear. Though there was so much left to do, Ryan no longer carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. He had people willing to back him up now, for better or worse. What comes next? Livia asked. Now that Adam has been dealt with, we should prepare for what comes afterward. I will infiltrate your family, Ryan said. Brief Alchemo, Len, and Saren on the memory map front. See how to deal with Dynamis for good. Contact Vulcan to recreate the Saturn armor. See with the Carnival how we can deal with the bunker, Narcinia, and the Bliss factory. Research the Psycho cure, and probably plan a trip to Antarctica. Antarctica? It's a long story. Well, We will discuss how to deal with the carnival together. I already started doing simulations, but you are our ace in the hole. Livia smiled at him. You will meet with Jamie tonight, to infiltrate my family from the bottom? Yes. I put him on a list. He hadn't interacted with Jamie, Ki-young and Lanka for many loops, and he yearned to meet with them again. Now that he could theoretically bring a limitless number of people into his loops, he was no longer afraid of trying to befriend others for the long term. But I meant something else for the infiltration phase. Livia raised an eyebrow. Oh. There's something I've been meaning to ask you, but I've been hesitating for a while. Because, Ryan gathered his breath. Because if I do, I can't take it back. It will be complicated, and it may not work. But if it does... He left the sentence hanging, watching as Livia's breathing shortened. She must have guessed his intentions, but since she couldn't predict him, she felt anxiety rather than serenity. If he hadn't misread all the signals she had sent him in this loop and the previous one, the seer wanted Ryan to make a move, but was afraid of the shame she would face if she had guessed wrong. Ask away, she said shyly. Livia. Ryan grabbed her by the waist and pulled her closer. Though she gasped in surprise, being unable to predict the gesture, Livia didn't resist. She felt light as a feather in his arms, a fragile porcelain doll. He ignored all the gazes his teammates sent him, focusing entirely on her blue eyes, and the pinkish blush spreading on her cheeks. Are you available tomorrow night? 97, a breath of fresh air. Sorry, I can't do that. Ryan scratched Eugene Henry's back while watching Dr. Tyranno on his computer screen. The A-bomb laid on the desk, right next to the late Fat Adam's gravity cannon. You're saying no to unlimited fundings, resources, and safety from the monster you keep bottled up in your lab when he inevitably breaks out? Because you know he will. I don't know how you managed to learn that much about my work, Tyranno admitted, a little disturbed. But I am contractually bound to Dynamis for the next 200 years. I can't even leave the building without a heavy escort. 200 years? Were there other time travelers running around in Italy? Is that even legal? In New Rome, it is. Ryan massaged his temples, at his wit's end. Think, Tyranno, think. You're using an unstable product to turn people you know into time bombs. What will you have after everyone has turned into a bloodstream clone? Dr. Tyranno remained silent for a moment, but Ryan guessed his answer before he even spoke. Dinosaurs, the scaly answered. I'd still have dinosaurs. That made Ryan think more than it should. Still, the fact Tyranno wouldn't leave the Dynamis HQ nor agree to sabotage the knockoff supply dashed a few of the courier's hopes. Even if the carnival developed a vaccine plague to cure New Rome's population, they would have to assault Lab 66 again to finish off Bloodstream for good. Still, Ryan didn't give up on the Saurian genius. What if I told you we have access to a completely safe knockoff variant, so strong it even works with robots? The courier tempted him. That we have not one, but two genomes with multiple powers and no side effects to study? That we possess a wealth of research and information on elixirs, and a lab capable of creating life from scratch? Then he delivered the coup de grace. In human life? Tyranno's slitted eyes expanded like a frog's, to Ryan's shock. The courier wondered if it was what passed for arousal for humanoid dinosaurs. To hook him further, the courier forwarded the genius a sample of his elixir research, including a bioscan of Mongrel. We're working on a cure for the psycho condition, Ryan said. Though you're contractually obligated to work with Dynamis, certainly you can sacrifice some of your precious time for it. Who knows, maybe you could make a green knockoff capable of granting your dearest, cold-blooded wish. The genius barely took a glance at the data before raising his white flag. Where do I sign? First, Ryan scratched Eugene Henry behind the ears. You must give me access to that folder. Oh, that one? Dr. Tyranno seemed strangely embarrassed about it. It's something of a side project, and early results weren't promising. But it will change the world, you'll see. I'll keep an open mind, Ryan said, as he received an email called Monster Girl Project. He opened the video file within. The courier instantly regretted it, as an abomination came into view. The screams and moans that came out of this thing startled Ryan so much, that he almost fell from his chair. His terrified cat leaped out of his lap to take over the nearby bed. Oh God, Ryan covered his mouth, though he couldn't tell if it was in horror or terrible awe at the man's demented genius. There were things that could still surprise him after 8 centuries of time traveling. Why? A creative spur. Tyranno explained, as if it made up for this crime against nature. I couldn't do that to a reptile. Why a mink? Ryan asked, closing the video feed when he couldn't take the abomination's screams anymore. Is that thing still alive? No, it died, unfortunately, Tyranno reassured him. But I have a spare. Ryan resisted the urge to throw up, and stopped the video call feed. He would have nightmares for years to come. Even the most depraved Sonic the Hedgehog fans didn't go as far as Dr. Scaly did. The courier took a moment to gather his breath, only to suddenly hold it. 2 long ears rose from the side of the desk, a monster rising from the depths of hell. No, Ryan said with false panic. The plushie looked at his maker, then at the A-bomb, and finally back at his maker. Meanwhile, Eugene Henry ignored them all to vanish beneath the bed sheets, considering the matter beneath his kingly notice. No! Ryan forbade the plushie. And for the first time since this loop began, the furred fiend answered. I will always be your friend. This plushie hastily pushed the A-bomb's button with a loud click. Nothing happened. The plushie hit it again, and again, and again in quick succession, growing more and more frustrated. Its eyes turned red as it glared angrily at Ryan. It's a prop, the courier replied with a grin. I gave the real one to Vulcan. He had bribed his favorite dwarf genius with so much technology that she didn't even ask him to ruin Star Studios this time. Vulcan insisted that Ryan become her assistant instead, and wouldn't take no for an answer. The courier was more than willing to help her, but only in short bursts. Though Ryan could now interact with Vulcan without feeling stabbed in the gut every time she opened her mouth, the shadow of his Jasmine remained ever present. The courier also intended to use this loop to deal with the Bliss Factory and Narcinia, and so would rather stay a contractor working for multiple branches of the Augustes organization. The plushie's eyes turned blue in disappointment, so Ryan tossed it the gravity cannon. Here, if you want to work your way up the suicide chain, he said. Aim for the heart though. There's a chance you might live if you go for the head. I know from experience. The eldritch horror examined the cannon curiously, though the weapon was 10 times larger than it was. Please don't kill anyone else. Ryan pleaded as he left the fiend to its experiments, rising from his seat to move to his door. So? Shroud asked, having waited for him in the next corridor. He had managed to repair his glass mask, though Ryan wondered why he bothered to hide his true face anymore. He won't help sabotage the tomato juice factory, Ryan replied with disappointment. He fears his boss's wrath more than ours. If the courier was on a meta run, he might have changed that, but Ryan would have his plate full with the Augusti for now. 1 day had passed since the bunker raid, though Ryan spent last night at the harbor helping Jamie protect drug supplies. Luigi hadn't shown up this time, probably at Livia's urging, but Jamie still invited Ryan to stay at his house all the same. That guy was so nice, he made the courier want to adopt him. Ryan spent the day in Mekran's bunker, settling things here. He had contacted Alchemo, who should make his way to New Rome by the next day and help take over the bunker's mainframe. With Dr. Stitch and Tyranno's long-distance assistance, the courier would have the best medical team in the world to figure out a cure for the psycho condition. The night, he would dedicate to Livia. Then we will need to clean up Dynami's upper echelons, Matthias said. We plan to wait for Hector Monada to retire, but we can hasten his departure all the same. I've seen Hector Monada fall many times. Ryan said with a shrug. His children might be willing to switch to a safer, better product than one capable of causing a pandemic. Fallout won't follow, Matthias said. Enrique might, once we provide him with the necessary data to show the destruction Bloodstream could unleash, and especially if his family lied to him. But Alphonse is another beast entirely. He won't surrender Bloodstream, even for a better alternative. Why wouldn't he? Ryan asked with a frown. He's a red, a commie infiltrator. He wants to turn everyone into a genome, maybe even for free. The vigilante remained skeptical. Think about it. Fallout not only controls the knockoff supply, but with Tyranno's cure, he can also remove powers at will. That's not the case with Mecran's variants, if I understand correctly. Ryan pondered Shroud's point, and had to admit that he might be right on the money. Atom Smasher planned to make everyone a genome so people like Augustus couldn't monopolize power, but he didn't wish to coexist with other organizations. Neither did he hesitate to lie to his close allies, so that Dynamis could develop a monopoly on knockoff elixirs. If Dynamis could both give superpowers and take them away, then it could become a true superpower. People would be kept in line by the fear of losing their knockoff genome abilities, and the Monada would monopolize the market. Fallout cares less about his knockoff's potential side effects than the societal control they grant his organization, Shroud said. If he was truly the hero he believes himself to be, he wouldn't have created something so dangerous in the first place. In the end, Alphonse Monada only believes in his vision. He won't deviate from his chosen path unless forced to. I can stop time, Ryan said, remembering Bianca running off to sacrifice herself. I will stop him. Can you? Shroud asked, doubtful. Among the most dangerous genomes operating in Italy, he comes a close third behind Augustus and Leo. I can, with this base's resources. This place will have to go, Ryan, Shroud insisted. Maybe there is something here that could defeat Fallout, or even Augustus, true. But the risk of dangerous weapons spreading to the public is too great. Even distributing Mecran's knockoff formula doesn't strike me as a good idea. It might weaken the position of genome warlords, but our post-war society is too fragile to survive 10 million people with flamethrowers for arms. You're preaching to a convert, Ryan replied. But I will only destroy this place after it helps solve the current crisis. Shroudy Matty crossed his arms. Do you truly believe psychos can be cured? You don't, my transparent friend? No, the vigilante replied, before adding, but if there is a chance it works, if there is even the slightest chance it works, I can't stop you from trying. It would help too many lives. For your mom, one of the genomes I called is specialized in brains. Shroud's head perked up at Ryan's words. He can even cure mental illnesses, Alzheimer's, and even a psycho's brain tumors. He could help you too. Ryan couldn't see looking glass face behind his mask, though the vigilante turned his head sideways, thoughtful. Why do you think the alchemist distributed these elixirs in the first place? To turn us into interdimensional squids, Ryan thought. I dunno, improve the human condition? I think so too, and yet we use them to ravage the world. Shroud shook his head. When I hear all the positive things geniuses can make, I can't help but wonder why Mecran built weapons rather than medical supplies. Not even superpowers could change human nature. Take it from someone who knows, Ryan replied. There will always be rotten apples like late Adam, but most people I've met only need the right circumstances to turn their lives around. Anyone can choose right over wrong. Even a spoiled, self-obsessed brat with a busted power. Shroud chuckled. Do you know that she sculpts in her spare time? She must have shown her boyfriend her gallery yesterday night. Pretty neat, huh? She's good at it, Matthias continued, his tone warm. I thought she relied on her own luck to do everything, but she hides artistic sensibilities that appeal to me as a game designer. I can't quite explain it. And she won €500,000 in lottery winnings this morning, but instead of sitting on it, she wants to distribute it to Rust Town's orphans. My, was he speaking fondly of Fortuna? Yesterday's battle had greatly helped to turn his opinion of her around. She's a golden retriever, Ryan summed it up. Loud, no respect for personal space, but surprisingly warm and loyal underneath. Worse. She's a much better person than I thought. The courier put his hands behind his head. Will you be transparent with her on your next date? Will you turn back time to make your own go well? Matthias deadpanned with a joke of his own, before answering. I think I will clear things up with her, but not as long as she's working as a hitman for Augustus. That's a deal breaker. Unlike other members of her group, she isn't in it for the killing, Ryan said. She wants to protect Livia first and foremost. It's almost romantic. Is that why you're dating her? Shroud's voice turned from amused to serious. To turn Augustus' daughter around? I asked her out because I wanted to, Ryan replied. He really had a thing for blue genomes shorter than himself. Giving her access to this place is dangerous, Ryan. What if she changes her mind and informs Augustus? She has earned my trust and helped me when I needed it, the courier replied. I want to return the favor. Her father would wreck the world for her sake, if he didn't. She didn't deserve to have her sire's crimes on her conscience. Mark my words, Ryan, you can't save everyone. Shroud marked a short pause. Especially from themselves. And yet, he had to try. After Alchemo comes here, we'll use your rabbit foot of a girlfriend to access the mainframe, Ryan said, changing the subject. You can confirm what I said about the other Mecran bases then, and we will unlock the self-destruct mechanism. I will have to inform Leo about you understand that? Shroud asked. Even if you turn back time again, I can't keep that to myself. Even for my cute, beautiful eyes? Not even for them, the carnival member replied with a chuckle. Is there a way for you to carry others through time? I suppose it is only mental, since there aren't 20 of you running around. Sharp guy. I have a procedure to transfer information directly into your brain, though your past self will have to submit to it. He won't, Shroud said, shaking his head. I know myself. I am too paranoid to let anyone alter my brain, even if you earn my trust beforehand. I'm not sure I would even accept such a procedure at Leo's urging, and I respect him more than anyone. Ryan had expected as much. The only people he imagined would go through with the memory transfer unconditionally were Alchemo, who understood the technology, and Saren, who had nothing left to lose. Even Len had remained on the fence so far. I'm trying to improve a system that could bypass that extra step, but nothing's confirmed yet. I don't like it, he admitted. You hold all the cards, and all I can do is go along. Well, I also trusted you enough to share my greatest secret too, Safelight, Ryan pointed out. I can count on one hand those who know my true, phenomenal cosmic power. I wonder what adventures we went through for you to do so. We defeated the Metagang together once, though lightning but destroyed the city after you recruited Adam Cat. Good to know, Shroud replied dryly, though he didn't like it. Neither did Ryan, since Adam Kitten would clearly be much happier with the carnival than with Dynamis. A shame. I was interested in Felix Varon. He has a great deal of potential as a hero and a courageous heart. As much as the panda? Shroud scoffed. Come with me and see for yourself. The vigilante led Ryan into the bunker's atrium, where they found the transformed panda folding paper sheets under Len's watch. Saren was playing pool near a pile of books, including Descartes' de la Method, Pour bien conduire essai raison et chercher la vérité dans les sciences, by René Descartes. Look, Sifu. The panda exquisitely folded the paper sheet in the shape of a mantis so fast that Ryan could barely see his paws move. The construct joined for others, representing a monkey, a tiger, a crane, and a snake. Tada! Nice superpower, Saren snickered. Can you unlock Rubik cubes too? One of my teammates, Origami, can turn herself into paper sharp enough to slice throats, Shroud replied dryly. She could even slice through your suit? You're salty, aren't you? The psycho taunted him, while focusing on her game. Earn my trust first, turncoat, and then we'll talk. Though he tolerated Saren, the vigilante mistrusted her as much as Ryan did in the early days of his presidency. If you sell us out as you did your previous employer, I will slay you myself. I told your hat pal, if you truly can cure me, then you've got nothing to fear from me. Saren hit an 8-ball with her pool stick. Don't make me wait too long. The courier ignored them to focus on his bear disciple. Even Ryan couldn't fold paper that fast, even though he had mastered the skill years ago. I thought you were a martial arts genius, he asked his Padawan. Or does your brilliance extend to all Eastern disciplines? No, that's not it, Len said while shaking her head. I ran tests. It took him minutes to pick up origami, and he learned French 5 pages into Descartes' book. The more I read, the more it made sense, the panda said. I think he can learn almost any skill at an accelerated pace, Len theorized. Pick up a new language quickly, gain new skills by learning them through osmosis. Ryan knew it took on average 10,000 hours to master a skill, but clearly bears only needed half of one. But how did enhanced learning help make you fly, my young Padawan? That was so weird, Sifu. My vision went all blue, and then I remembered watching Bruce Lee's flying kick in the Green Hornet. And to illustrate his point, the panda mimicked a few kung fu moves with his paws. Then I could do it too. You learned one of Bruce Lee's moves, by remembering it? Yes. The man-bear nodded. That's how I learned martial arts, but I was never this good before. In half an hour, the panda had mastered kung fu, origami, and Descartes. Ryan dreaded to imagine what he could achieve in a week. His Padawan probably couldn't learn what a normal human couldn't, but anything else was fair game. Arithmetic, philosophy, martial arts, perhaps even genius technology, if given time to observe it. Bruce Lee's moves were made for humans, and yet the panda's second power allowed him to adapt them to his beastly body proportions. His arrogant young disciple had ascended to shatter the heavens. Speaking of power, Ryan needed to run tests on his own after he created the new iteration of the Saturn armor. He would also add a few improvements to deal with Alphonse Monada, such as switching the chest blaster with the gravity cannon. He had the feeling it would help deal with the nuclear disaster, maybe even lightning but two. Well, I should go prepare for my date, Ryan said. Livia asked him to pick her up at 9, and to be on time. For once, the courier didn't dare to be fashionably late. Good luck, Sifu. The panda cheered him up. I knew the tension was palpable. Len, though, seemed a lot less enthusiastic. Riri. Can I talk to you alone for a second? Ryan nodded, his adoptive sister leading him outside, to the corridor overseeing the hangars. Henriette was playing with the children near the submarine, the dog delighting at having company. The group brought much levity to an otherwise claustrophobic, lifeless place. Len glanced through the corridor's window, her arms folded. You and her. It's hard to explain, Ryan admitted. The genius held her breath. In the past loops, did my other self know? Well, I kinda told you how I felt, and we decided to stay family afterward. Len's gaze saddened as she glanced at the Mecrin-made submarine floating in the bunker's water access. We could reach the United States with it, she said. Cross the Atlantic Sea. Even I can't turn back time that far, Ryan said sadly. Trust me, I tried. I tried many times. I know, Len bit her lower lips, and didn't finish her sentence. Ryan didn't need her to do so, to guess what she didn't dare to say. That part of her wondered how their relationship could have ended. They had left each other in tears, and though they had started picking up the pieces, some of them had been forever lost to the sea. We could leave this place, she said, though with hesitation. After we deal with Dad. I can't do that, Shorty. Not anymore. If she had asked when he first arrived in New Rome, Ryan wouldn't have hesitated. But now the time traveler had too many people to fight for. He couldn't leave them behind in the dust. She will be fine, Len protested. She's his daughter. Let them tear apart New Rome, if they want that rotten place so much. So I should let her father kill people for her sake? Ryan asked, and instantly regretted it. Len flinched as if she had been slapped. I'm sorry. You don't want her to end up like me, the genius guessed, avoiding his gaze. Ryan glanced at the Mecrin submarine. Do you think we could reach Antarctica with that thing? She frowned, not understanding what he wanted to say. Yes, of course. There's so many mysteries to uncover around the world, so many wonderful places to explore, Shorty, Ryan said. Things that make life worth living. Don't bury yourself under the sea, please. Even whales rise up to take a breath of fresh air sometimes. I just don't know what to make of everything, Len admitted. The carnival, they killed my father, but if what you've said is true, you will let the carnival operate on you, he asked her. Remove your father's blood tracker? It's the last part one have left of him. Ryan put his hands in his pocket, choosing his words carefully. His thoughts turned to his discussion with his own elixir, when he briefly crossed the Black World portal. Someone told me once that you have to let the dead rest. By trying to keep the dead alive, we only make everyone suffer. Nobody can move on. Len wouldn't answer, her face as blank as a death mask. Ryan's hand reached for her shoulder, but she avoided his touch. Too soon. Still, he accepted it, hoping his words would prevail. Shorty, your family, he said. That will never change. Not even whatever happens with Livia, if anything happens between us, will change that. You will always stay my best friend, my sister, my most important person in the world. She bit her lower lip. I don't know what to answer. Then don't say anything, Ryan answered with a smile. What I mean to say is that you're not alone, and you never have been. You don't need a ghost to carry on. The children love you, and whenever you trip, I will be there to help you rise back up. Ryan and Len fell into a comfortable silence, just as a black sphere phased through the hangar and collapsed into nothingness. It miraculously didn't harm anyone, though the courier should probably check up on his bedroom before leaving. Now, I hope I didn't give you diabetes, Ryan joked. And to his surprise, she chuckled and relaxed. It seemed his wit had broken through her shell. Riri, about your memory machine. You will try it on? Recover your other self's memories? She answered his question with a nod. What made you change your mind? Even after what happened between us, you offered me your hand. The shadow of a smile appeared on her face. It's time I do the same for you.